Right. You spoke a lot about the opportunities that are arising from the CSC partnership. We just also want to understand the employment opportunities there. You've already highlighted that the private partner has taken over the payment of salaries since February. But is there room for probably getting more people involved, rather employed, going forward within the 25 years that they're going to be running the concession?
Yes, the joint venture at CSC with their Boston Private Limited will go a long way in bolstering employment through that entity countrywide. They've got ranches, abattoirs and facilities right across the board, but also the backward and forward linkages with the agro-processing industry, for example, and their forward linkages in terms of buying from others, in terms of the cattle head, they'll be replenishing, they'll be working with farmers in rural areas and everywhere. All of that will create jobs over the next 25 years. We've no doubt about that, and that's a positive thing.
All right. And then you highlighted that to boost the local herd, they're actually going to be importing from South Africa and Botswana. Is there an opportunity for them to also use local bulls in the country, local cows in the country, to also make the locals benefit from this whole process in its initiation?
Absolutely, there's an opportunity for them to use local material as well, raw material to bolster the cattle herd. For example, at Chinhoyi University, there is a whole program that is producing semen straws from bulls, and that can be used for replenishing our herd. So we expect this company going forward to partner with the Chinhoyi University to use indigenous intellectual property from Zimbabwe, local indigenous property, to bolster to boost the cattle herd. Absolutely, and they will do everything to make sure the herd is bolstered. We know that in March 2017, the national herd that was controlled by CSC in its ranches was down to about, I think, 341. So it was very, very low, very, very low indeed. So, and now with the drought this year, again, that is impacting the quality of the herd. So there's need to replenish through importation, but at the same time, want to use the intellectual property, such as that developed at Chinhoyi University, to bolster the cattle herd.
Now to Zupco. There were 39 buses that were commissioned by the president 3 to 4 weeks ago, and the question has been, where are these buses? Because people are not seeing them on the roads. Are they already operational, or rather, when are they going to be start operating in the country? Because we're seeing the buses that had been introduced back in late January, and people have been asking, where are the new buses? And the fuel issue, how is the Zupco facility really going to benefit people if again the buses are affected by the fuel situation? Because again, last week to this week, we've been seeing private operators taking advantage of the fuel situation to hike fares. So firstly, just give us an update on where the 39 buses are, and then the fuel issue. How will this new setup with Zupco really be, avoid, the issues that are affecting to do with fuel? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Basically, we have negotiated a procurement of 500 buses from Belarus, 100 buses from China, and 200 buses from South Africa, so a fleet of 800. And the first 39 have been delivered, and the president has commissioned these buses. These buses are beginning to ply our routes. Of course, 39 buses is not a lot of buses, so therefore the impact is not yet being felt, but will increase the stock going forward through these negotiated agreements, China, Belarus, and South Africa. So up to the 800 buses that we've negotiated so far. Our intention going forward is to get to 1,000, and when a strategic partner comes into Zupco in future, is then to go up to 3,000, because we believe that really dealing with this mass transit bus system is key to developing an efficient infrastructure, transport infrastructure, to support our fast urbanizing economy. So we'll get there. So the buses are coming on stream, and you'll see them begin to ply our urban roads. That will then liberate also some of the Zupco fleet to start plying the rural roads, routes as well, because we have got stock in the urban areas. Now, in terms of fuel, of course, fuel impacts everyone, but the idea is really to prioritize public transportation when it comes to allocation of diesel fuel. So we'll allocate more foreign currency, because we know that by doing that, allocating more foreign currency to the diesel that most of these buses use, then we're dealing with a transportation issue. We're making transportation easier for anyone to access, and also keeping the pricing low, because we are injecting competition into the transport sector that will keep prices low. We are acutely aware of that, and we'll do everything to make sure that the fuel situation is dealt with as far as these buses are concerned.
All right, coming back to issues to do with Parliament. Last week, you were expected to appear before the Budget and Finance Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. We understand you traveled, so you couldn't make it. Then to yesterday morning, you were also expected to appear before the same committee, but you did not appear. And there was indication that probably you'd produce a ministerial statement today in Parliament. What is the issue there? Because again, you did not appear in Parliament. You, as we were talking earlier, you were saying you were maintaining a low profile after you returned. Just tell us where you had been and what's the status with the Parliament issue, because the parliamentarians are not understanding what's really happening there.
Oh, they understand. I was in Parliament today. I was happy to see all my colleagues in Parliament, and I think they were equally happy to see me. So that was fabulous. When I said I'm in low profile, I mean I was not in the media. That's what I meant, which is where most people are likely to see me, because there's a limit to which I can be met physically. In fact, anyone can be met physically. Usually the media then does the work in making sure we meet. No. So last week I was in Paris at the invitation of by the Minister of Finance for France. Basically, we had a meeting called the Paris Forum. The Paris Forum is nothing other than a group of creditors and debtors who get together in Paris, because France chairs the Paris Club, as you know. So we were there to discuss the global debt issues. So I was there then to contribute from a Zimbabwe point of view, from an Africa point of view, our debt situation, our foreign debt situation, but also our domestic debt situation. Through those discussions, we were able to say, you know what, yes, most African countries at the moment are beginning to feel the heat when it comes to their external debt. It is rising. So just Zimbabwe. I won't mention other countries now that I'm a minister. Previously I could have mentioned the countries because I've got all the data. So it is very important, therefore, to start instituting serious fiscal discipline to be able to contain the debt accumulation pace. That's why here in Zimbabwe we've had this fiscal consolidation, and we've been able to maintain fiscal discipline, which has allowed us to manage our debt levels. In fact, on domestic debt, we've been paying our domestic debt, and now we're negotiating then the payment of our foreign debt arrears through the staff monitoring program process. So we discussed all of that, and I was able to make a contribution. The other issue that we discussed was really that we should have a better handle on the data on all government debt, not just central government debt, both domestic and foreign, but also debt from parastatals, because often ministers of finance are required from time to time to assume debt from a parastatal through some debt assumption bill of sorts in order to clean up the balance sheet of the company and prepare it for privatization. So it is very important for ministers of finance to be aware of what those debt levels are and be up to speed, and also keep the right amount of data to be able to anticipate the impact of that on the debt stock, but also have proper debt management offices. But also it was called upon the creditors as well to be transparent about letting the world know what they are lending for, because often the pressure is on us, the borrowers, to tell everyone through parliamentary inquiries or whomsoever, journalists, sharp journalists like yourself asking us tough questions. We tell you how the debt has been, money has been spent on what project. But the creditors then don't reveal, so we need a transparent information on both sides. That was emphasized quite a bit. So that was really the nature of the broader global discussion. So we had basically the Paris Club partners in terms of creditors, and us, the typical borrowers from the angle from Africa, And then from Southern Africa to the Pacific, it was just Zimbabwe represented by myself, and South Africa, it was the Governor of the Central Bank of South Africa who represents South Africa. There were only 2 participants from Anglophone Africa, and then there were other participants from the French-speaking part of Africa, and then the creditors right across the globe. I was also able to engage, which is my third point, to engage with the French government. Is one of the key creditors. They chair the Paris Club, engage them on our reform agenda, on our debt clearance agenda, in preparation for the eventual restructuring and clearance of our debt. I was also able to engage with the World Bank president, as well as, again, the MD of the International Monetary Fund, and others in our debt clearance roadmap agenda. So that's what I'd gone to Paris to do.
Interesting. Just to cut you short there, you mentioned an interesting point that the government is actually paying domestic debt, has been paying. Do you have a figure off your head as to how much has been paid off the domestic debt?
This year alone, 2019, we paid 195 million already, using the surplus, fiscal surplus that we've been able to accumulate. So we are paying already, and we'll continue to do that to reduce at least the domestic debt. Even the foreign debt, we've also begun to make token payments on our arrears on foreign debt with the World Bank, with the African Development Bank, and with the European Investment Bank, and also for the Global Fund for HIV, because we're aware that by settling what we owe there in terms of commitment will unlock for much more to support our HIV program. So this quarter we've decided servicing our debt with those kind of institutions, and we stopped doing that in 2017. So here we are 2 years later, we've begun that process. It's very, very important for our credit standing that we begin to do that again using the surplus that we've accumulated so far.
All right.
So, but coming to Parliament, because in terms of making a statement, I agreed with the committee that they wanted to meet with me yesterday that I would actually make a full and formal statement on the state of the economy tomorrow afternoon, and I'll be doing that. It's ready. I can't share it with you, but I'll be in Parliament.
I'll be in Parliament, definitely,
and be ready to answer any question and every question on the state of the economy.
All right. You said after 6 months people could judge you, and the Zimbabweans have been asking. Things were projected to start, stabilizing by April. It's May now, almost June. Inflation is going skyrocketing, and prices of goods are going up. Just last week, Friday, we had a meeting where Grain Millers Association of Zimbabwe and local retailers actually signed a memorandum of understanding to say we're now going to start self-regulation. They say it's not price control, where they're going to sanction themselves to say if someone in the retail industry is overpricing, they'll make sure that suppliers will not supply them.
Mm-hmm.
But after 6 months, your projections and where we are, what's your take on that?
Frankly, in terms of the economic reform agenda, we've done very well in the last 6 months. Look at the record. If you look at our record on the fiscal consolidation front, we're already we've eliminated the deficits already. So we tick that box, we've achieved that. If you look at the progress we have made on the state enterprise reform agenda, earlier we were talking about progress regarding CSE, progress regarding ZUBCO. We've moved on ZESA in terms of rebundling, unbundling GMB, dealing with governance and leadership issues at Allied Timbers, and also unbundling and bolstering again leadership and management systems at Willowvale. So that's a lot of progress. As I speak now, if you look at the institutional agenda, basically the POSA bill is before Parliament now, and today, as you heard, we reported on progress regarding the Freedom of Information bill, which will repeal IPA once it is approved by Parliament. The citizenship bill as well, prisoners bill, and so forth and so forth. So again, we made a lot of progress on that. So what I mean by judging us in 6 months is that is that we will walk the talk on our economic reform agenda. Because the question I was asked was, will you walk the talk? Are you going to see the reform agenda through, both economic and also institutional, political? And the answer is yes, and here we are. On the issue raised on inflation, I've always maintained, and I've never deviated, that inflation will remain high until October this year. And it's a technical phenomenon because we've changed the base of inflation. And then by year end, it will then come down. So this time next year, for example, it should be much, much lower than what it is. And by the way, I welcome what the retailers have done, which is to self-regulate in terms of increasing prices. That's what it should be. There's no justification really for prices to go up in the way that they're doing. And you know, retailers using the power rate to price. That is bad economics, it's bad finance. That's not how it's done. If you produce a good locally, what you work out is the import component within that, and it's never 100%. It's always a lot lower than that. So surely it can't be that whenever the exchange rate moves up in whatever market, you then raise your price. It can't be. Then really that's profiteering. So I welcome the move by retailers. It just shows that we're beginning to engage again. We're beginning to have a constructive dialogue, and that is most welcome.
All right, Professor, you say there are so many positives to take away from the 6 months, but a person in Zimbabwe is now having to wait in queues for fuel for long hours for the past 6 months. The queues have not disappeared. The same person is now having to deal with ZESA power cuts, and they have to source alternative sources of energy. The same person has had to deal with what we've just been talking about right now, prices of goods skyrocketing, and yet their salaries have not moved an inch. What's your message to that individual who's watching this message? Many have started to say, is there still hope for Zimbabwe? What's your message to someone who's already starting to give up and who's probably thinking there's no way out for Zimbabwe?
I urge citizens to be patient, that economic reforms don't work instantly. We're going through an adjustment. It will come to pass. As I've said, by this time next year, inflation will be down, and what we've done so far is to be true to the reform agenda that we've said we will institute. I'll give you another example on the issue of national dialogue. Most people did not believe that the president would initiate this process, but here we have a process of national dialogue, and that's important for building social cohesion, and it is happening. Now, if you look at what we did again on the monetary policy front, again we say that look, the one-to-one arrangement in terms of exchange rate is not workable. It is not sustainable. It is costly. We've done that reform on the monetary policy front. Of course, it has had an impact, but Zimbabwe needs to be a normal country again. It needs to be a normal economy again. Now we have a domestic accounting currency, which is RTGS dollar. We are still in the multi-currency regime, granted, but we do have a domestic accounting currency. So all that is progress in the right direction, and people should be patient. It will come right. We'll look back and say, what was that?
Thank you so much, Professor, for your time.
Thank you.